Okay, here in looking back to your lesson, okay, we're going to focus on transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs are action verbs that have an object to receive that action, while intransitive verbs are action verbs, but unlike transitive verbs, they don't have any object receiving the action. So here are the examples of transitive verbs which are used in a sentence. Example number 1. The students study the lesson. You have here the subject, which is the students, the verb, which is the study, and then the object, which is the lesson. Okay, so transitive verbs focuses more of the action. Okay, so here in this first sentence, what is the verb here? Okay, the word study. This is the action word. Now, we call it transitive verb if the action word or the verb has a receiver or an object that receives the action of the subject. Okay, the students, the subject, and then the verb, study. Okay, study what? Study the lesson. So it has a receiver. So the word study here, which is a verb, is used as a transitive verb because it has a receiver. Okay, example number 2. My dog ate dog food. Okay, the subject here is my dog, the verb, ate, and then the object, dog food. Okay, what is the verb here? Ate. Okay, and it has a receiver, which is dog food, which is the object in the sentence. Okay, so what does the dog eat? It comes right after the object of the verb, okay, which is the dog food. So it has a receiver. So the verb eat, this is a transitive verb. Okay, last example. The teacher teaches the students. The subject, the teacher, and then the verb, teaches. Again, and then comes right after the object, which is the students. Okay, so where is the verb here? Yes, it is teaches. Okay, so the teacher teaches what? Okay, teaches what? The students. Okay, so it has a receiver. So that's why this verb, this is an example of a transitive verb. Okay, let us now proceed in intransitive verbs. So again, transitive verb. Okay, transitive verbs are action verbs that have an object to receive that actions. So it consists of subject, verb, and then comes right after the object. Okay, here in intransitive verb, okay, these are action verbs of which they do not have an object receiving the action. Okay, so here are the examples. My child sleeps. So it has the subject, my child, followed by the verb, sleeps. Okay, do we have a receiver to this action word, sleeps? Okay, none. We don't have an object here that receives the action. But this sentence is already a complete sentence. Okay, example number 2. We went to the mall. The subject here is we, and then the verb, went. Okay, do we have any receiver here? Okay, none. Okay, actually we don't have any receiver here. Okay, because to the mall, this is not an object. Okay, so this is already a prepositional phrase. So this is already a complete sentence. Okay, this doesn't have an object or a receiver. So the word or the verb went, this is an intransitive verb. Third example, Sarah speaks loud. Sarah speaks loud. Sarah, that is the subject of the sentence, then followed by speaks, which is the verb or the action. Okay, and then comes right after the word loud. Okay, so loud, is this an object? No. Okay, so this is just only a description, okay, on the manner how Sarah speaks. Okay, so loud here, this is an adverb. So this is not an object, but this is already a complete sentence. Okay, so Sarah speaks loud. So the verb speak or speaks, this is an example of intransitive verb. Okay, so here is our brief introduction for active and passive voice. So remember, okay, here in the transitive verbs, I have given here examples of sentences which contain subject, verb, and then object. Okay, so this is where we are going to focus of this formation of these following sentences. Okay, again, subject, verb, and then object. Okay, so let us now proceed to our main topic here, which is voice of the verb. Voice of the verb, it is the quality of the verb that tells whether the subject is the doer or the receiver of the action. Okay, first, voice is what we call the active voice, is used to indicate that the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action, while passive voice is used to indicate that the subject of the sentence is the receiver of the action. So we are using active voice if we want to indicate the subject of the sentence or the doer that is doing the action. Okay, here in the passive voice, we indicate that the subject of the sentence is not that so important, but we highlight or we focus on what did the subject has done. Okay, so here are the following examples of the active voice. Okay, so please do read them and study them. Okay, so again, active voice, when the subject does or acts upon the verb, the sentence is said to be in the active voice. Okay, so I have here the formation on how we are able to construct an active sentence. First one, doer, which is the subject of the sentence, followed by the verb or an action word, and then comes right after the receiver or the object that receives the action. Okay, here's the sentence. The students study the lesson. Okay, the subject here, the students, which is also our doer of the sentence. Next, verb. Okay, our verb should be an action word. Okay, the word study, this is an action word. Okay, next, after the action word, we must have a receiver, the lesson. Okay, so the receiver here, this is also the object of the sentence that receives the action. So this is how we are able to form an active sentence. Okay, next, we're done with the active voice. Now comes right after the passive voice. When the subject receives the action of the verb, the sentence is said to be in the passive voice. So here are our examples of passive voice or passive sentences. So please do read them and study them. Okay, so this is how we're able to write a passive sentence. Okay, first one, we must have the receiver, okay, or the subject of the sentence. And then after that, we're going to use be verb, and then followed by the past participle of the main verb. So we have two kinds of verb here. Be verb, after the be verb is the past participle of the main verb. And then we have to copy the word by, or use the word by. And lastly, at the end of your passive sentence is the doer of the sentence, or the object. Okay, here's the example. The lesson is studied by the students. The lesson is the receiver, which is now your subject of the sentence. Is your be verb. Okay, and then next, studied is the past participle of the main verb, and then we use the word by, and then after that is the doer of the sentence. The doer now of the sentence, that is now the object of the sentence. Okay, so we are going to focus now on changing active sentence or an active voice to passive voice sentence. Okay, so we have here 6 steps on how we're able to change active voice to passive voice. Okay, step 1. Identify the subject, the verb, and then the direct object. Okay, for example, my mother cooks dinner. The subject here, my mother. The verb, cooks. And the object here is dinner. So that is the first step. Step number 2. After we identify what is the subject, verb, and the object in the sentence, now, step number 2, determine the tense of the verb. Is it in present tense, past tense, or future tense? So again, going back to our original example, my mother cooks dinner. So we're going to focus on the verb, okay, cooks. The word cooks here, in what tense of the verb? Okay, the tense of this verb is in, okay, present tense. Okay, what if we used cooked? My mother cooked dinner. The tense of the verb here is in past tense. Okay, so what if our verb is in this form? Will cook. My mother will cook dinner. So what is the tense of the verb? Okay, it is in future tense. Okay. Step 3. Place the object to the subject area. Okay, and then step 4, determine the number of the new subject. Is it singular or plural? So this is our example. Okay, this is our example earlier. My mother, okay, which is the doer or the subject of the sentence. Okay, cooks, which is the verb of the sentence, and it is in present tense. Okay, and then the object here or the receiver here is dinner. So it says here, going back here, we're going to place the object to the subject area. Okay, so what is our object here? Okay, dinner. So now, dinner is now going to be our new subject of the sentence. Okay, so remember, we are going to change active to passive voice. So this is now your sentence. Okay, at the same time, dinner, the subject of the sentence, and then the receiver from the active voice. Okay, at the same time, it is singular. Okay, so when we say singular, it means it is just only one. Okay, step 5. Attach the verb, attach the verb to the new subject. So how we are able to form the verb? It is consists of be verb, past participle form of the verb. Okay, so I used here the be verb is. Okay, we use the word or the be verb is. That is because our subject here is singular. So that's why we are using singular form of the be verb is. And at the same time, we use is because the tense of the verb of our main verb here from the active voice is in present tense. So that's why our be verb here should be in present tense. Okay? And then after that, followed by the past participle of our main verb, which is cooks. We're going to change the word cooks into its past participle. So what's the past participle of cook? Okay, cooked. Okay, cook plus ed. That makes it as a past participle. Step 6. Write the new object after the verb to be introduced by the word by as shown in the previous table. Now, so we already have our subject of the sentence here, the dinner, and then verb is cooked, and then the word by. Okay, and then after that, we're going to introduce our object of the sentence by using the word by. Okay, and then we use the object of our sentence here, my mother. Okay, where this my mother came from? Okay, this one came from our active sentence here, which is my mother here, the doer. Okay, so this is our final answer for changing the active voice to passive voice from my mother cooks dinner to dinner is cooked by my mother, which is now our passive voice or passive sentence. Okay, what if our tense of the verb here in passive voice is in past tense? My mother cooked dinner. Okay, it just only means that the be verb here in the passive voice will be changed. Okay, so dinner was. Okay, we use was because the tense of the verb here is in past tense. So that's why the tense of the be verb here should be also in past tense. Okay, at the same time, dinner is in singular. That's why we're using also singular form of the be verb here. Okay, cooked by my mother. Dinner was cooked by my mother. Now, what if our tense of the verb here in the active sentence is in future tense? My mother will cook dinner. Now, the form of the be verb here will be changed as well. Okay, from will be changed into will be. Dinner will be cooked by my mother. So as you can see here in our table of be verbs, okay, if the tense of the verb here is in present tense, we use is for singular and are for plural. We use past, or if the tense of the main verb is in past tense, okay, we use was if it is singular, okay, and we use were if it is plural. Okay, lastly, if the tense of the verb from our active voice is in future tense, okay, we will be using be verb will be. Okay, if our subject is singular or plural, still will be. So this is how we're able to change active voice to passive voice.